we take the view that if we're going to be using gas, if we're going to be using oil in this country till 2050, and even the most zealous net zero types accept we'll be using these commodities for years to come, our view is if we're going to be using them, we may as well produce them ourselves in our own country and genuinely become energy independent.
Nigel Farage has used his talk with Jordan Peterson at the ARC conference to go on an absolute big tirade against net zero. And he explains here really clearly why the closing down of oil and gas contracts in the North Sea and why the closing down of steel plants makes absolutely no sense whatsoever from an environmental perspective and an energy security perspective. Listen to this.
And our platform is to reindustrialize Britain. We've closed down our steel industry. You know, we think closing down a steel industry is good because it means our national CO2 output is down. And all that happens is the plant closes in Redcar, the plant closes in South Wales, it reopens in India under lower environmental standards, and then the steel is shipped back to us. So let's produce all the stuff we need in this country. Let's become not just energy independent, we could actually become an energy exporter. Right now, every day we import 10 to 15% of our electricity, and our industrial energy prices are between 4 and 6 times higher than America. Not only that, but everybody out there, and of course this hurts the poor more than anybody, we've had 20% subsidies on domestic electricity bills going on now for the best part of 2 decades. And it's a truth that no one dares tell. So look, net zero is a complete and utter disaster. If you want to have energy production that is very, very low in carbon output, there is only one way ahead. That is small, modular, nuclear reactors, dozens of them all over the country. It's the only way forward.
Okay. Well,
it's the only way forward. And you know, if you look at the way the Far East produces nuclear energy, we can do it a damn sight cheaper than we've ever done it before.
Okay.
So very interesting thoughts on net zero there from Nigel Farage, and I have to say he did make Ed Miliband and the Just Stop Oil Net Zero Brigade look a bit stupid, to be honest, because he explained there very logically and clearly why what we are doing is a stupid idea. It simply does not make sense for us to be closing down steel plants here at a time when we still need steel. We live on one planet. Even if we reduce our carbon output as a country, if it's being produced in India with worse environmental standards and then being shipped here, all the way here, on a boat that's putting all sorts of fumes into the ocean, that just doesn't add up. It's one planet, okay? We don't have like CO2 borders. This is just absolutely bonkers. It's ideological rather than logical. And he makes the point there that this way that we are closing down oil and gas, even though we still have some, this way that we are, refusing to consider the option of nuclear, it's worked very well for France, this way that we are closing down steel plants when we still need them, it hurts poor people the most. Okay, the amount that poor people spend on their energy bill and on their petrol bill as a proportion of their income is much higher than that of wealthier families. It's like a regressive tax on poor people, this net zero policy. And we're hearing in the news today that we're going to see energy bills going up 5%. We were told by this government before they came into power, at least, that they were going to go down by 300 quid. It is simply not happening because they are pursuing a suicidal policy. Why won't they consider nuclear? They're too scared. It's going to cost us an absolute fortune. Our energy bills are going to be so high if all we do is use the limited number of wind turbines and solar panels that we have. Okay, we're just nowhere near being energy independent in that sense, to use Nigel's words. We want to be energy independent. One of the big arguments for net zero is we want to be energy independent. We don't want to be reliant on, for example, Russian oil and gas. We saw when the Ukraine war started and we saw that huge spike in prices, we saw how dependent we were on other people. If we want to be independent, yes, we need to invest in renewables. But that also includes nuclear, and it includes using fossil fuels whilst we still have them at the same time as building up our renewable capabilities. Okay, we can't just click our fingers and suddenly the whole country can be powered on renewables. This stuff takes time, and we are absolutely nowhere near being capable. And people are really starting to feel the pinch. In this country, this cost of living crisis has gone on long enough. Labour Party, they say they're the party of the working people, but they are not if they are putting up their energy bills. And he makes the important comparison to the US there. I don't know how many of you viewers have spent time in the US, but if you've ever filled a car up with petrol in the US, you will have been gobsmacked by how low the price was to fill up the tank. It is so much cheaper there. So much cheaper. I don't think a lot of people realise how ridiculously expensive energy is in this country compared to other countries. And remember that, pretty much every business has energy as part of their costs, which, ultimately gets passed down to the consumer and affects how successful and profitable they can be as a business at a time when we're desperate for growth. Do we really want to be putting essentially it's like a indirect tax on businesses, right? By putting up their energy costs, right? On top of all the extra taxes they've got to deal with and national insurance hikes and whatnot as a consequence of Rachel Reeves' budget. If we keep on putting up their energy bills, it's going to be absolutely horrific. I remember speaking to a guy who lives near me who runs a pub when we had the energy prices going up and up and up, when we had that huge spike, and there was the energy cap brought in, but that was for homes, that wasn't for businesses. And the bill on his pub, it was just going I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was insane. It was completely unmanageable, and they're worried about the pub having to close down because of the size of the energy bill. It was just astronomical. We can't have our businesses closing down just because we've pursued a suicidal net zero policy that's based on Ed Miliband's ideology. I think it's going to be interesting to see how long can Ed Miliband actually last in the cabinet, because Rachel Reeves is desperate for cash at the moment and his plans are costing a lot of money. They might want to get rid of him and replace him with someone who doesn't have such an extreme perspective. They're never going to ditch green. Okay, this is a party who does care about the environment, and I do believe that we should invest in renewable energy, but do we really want to go the full Ed Miliband approach, where we're closing down our oil and gas reserves, we're closing down our steel plants? I don't think so. Probably a bad idea. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are Nigel Farage's comments at the ARC conference right? Thank you very much for watching.